History often speaks in echoes, but some of its loudest echoes are the ones you can barely hear. Across centuries and continents, black men and women have altered the course of science, art, politics, and human freedom. Often without applause, sometimes without their names even being remembered. This is their story. In the late 1700s, when the American colonies were still stitching together a new identity, a young man named Benjamin Banneker looked to the night sky. Born free in Maryland to formerly enslaved parents, Banneker taught himself advanced mathematics and astronomy. At a time when many doubted the intellectual abilities of black people, he charted the heavens so precisely that he published some of the first widely respected almanacs in the United States. When officials struggled to map the territory that would become Washington, D.C., Banneker quietly stepped in. He used only a clock, a telescope, and sheer brilliance to help survey the future capital. Without his calculations, the city that houses the U.S. government might look very different today, yet most American history textbooks barely whisper his name. Nearly a century later, freedom seekers on the Underground Railroad followed the stars by night and listened to stories by day. Stay with me as the story unfolds. Kindly hit that like button, comment, share, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss the next chapter of Untold Black History Stories. But few know about Harriet Powers, a Georgia-born enslaved woman who transformed oral tradition into something even more ingenious. Powers stitched biblical scenes and celestial patterns into quilts that doubled as secret maps. Each panel contained symbols, a crooked path for a safe route, a cluster of stars for the best season to flee. To the casual eye, they were simple folk art. To those desperate for liberty, they were lifelines. Many families who found safety in the North owed their escape, in part, to the silent language of Powers's needle and thread. Leap forward to the mid-20th century and a quiet office in Virginia where Gladys West worked tirelessly on complex equations. Decades before smartphones, she helped create the mathematical models that became the backbone of GPS technology. Her calculations of the Earth's precise shape and gravitational forces allow modern navigation systems, on land, sea, and space, to pinpoint locations within meters. Today, every time you check a map on your phone, you are standing on Gladys West's shoulders, though for most of her career, her name remained a well-kept secret. Across the ocean in early 1900s Jamaica, Una Marson wielded a different kind of science. Words, poet, playwright, and activist, she used literature to challenge colonial rule and gender inequality. Later, in London, she became the first black female producer at the BBC, amplifying Caribbean voices to a global audience. Her broadcasts inspired young artists who would ignite future independence movements, yet most listeners never knew the soft-spoken producer behind the microphone was reshaping the very idea of empire. From the coded quilts of Harriet Powers to the cosmic charts of Benjamin Banneker, these heroes had one thing in common. Their impact rippled far beyond the volume of their voices. They didn't command armies or sign treaties. They built quiet revolutions, revolutions that turned telescopes into tools of liberation, fabric into roadmaps, equations into global positioning, and poetry into a weapon sharper than steel. But these are only the first threads of a much larger tapestry. Because as the mid-20th century dawned, new figures emerged who would bend the world without a single shout. A linguist whose secret work would shorten a global war, a musician whose hidden compositions shaped an entire genre, a biologist whose experiments unlocked the mystery of life itself. Who were they? And how did their unseen hands change the way we live right now? That is the mystery we'll uncover. If these hidden stories moved you, don't let them fade again. Subscribe, share, and join us where we reveal the next wave of silent heroes. People whose quiet genius still powers the world in ways you use every single day. History's greatest turning points are often credited to loud leaders and bold speeches. But while the headlines shouted, a quiet legion of black innovators kept rewriting the future. One idea, one invention, one act of courage at a time. These are some of the unsung giants whose influence still moves through our daily lives. During World War II, the Allies needed every hidden weapon they could find. One of those weapons was the mind of William Bill Goines, the first African-American Navy SEAL, who began his career in cryptology. Goines' early work, painstakingly intercepting and decoding enemy communications, helped shorten deadly battles and protect Allied ships. While others earned medals and parades, Goines operated in the shadows, sworn to secrecy for decades. Only in recent years have historians begun to uncover how his quiet vigilance prevented countless casualties. Everyone knows the swagger of Chuck Berry and the energy of Little Richard, but few realize that behind many early rock hits stood Sister Rosetta Tharpe. A gospel guitarist with blistering riffs and a voice like a freight train, Tharpe blended spirituals and rhythm in the 1930s and 40s, long before rock and roll was a term. Legends from Elvis to Johnny Cash called her their blueprint, yet for years her name was buried beneath those she inspired. Today, modern music still vibrates with her fingerprints. The digital pioneer you've never met. Fast forward to the dawn of the computer age. While tech history often highlights Silicon Valley founders, Clarence Skip Ellis quietly became the first African American to earn a PhD in computer science. In the 1970s, he co-created Groupware, the collaborative editing technology that lets multiple people work on the same document simultaneously. Every time you update a shared file in Google Docs or work in a cloud document, you're leaning on Ellis's breakthroughs, though few recognize his name. Long before genetic engineering became a buzzword, Dr. Ernest Everett Just was redefining biology. In the early 20th century, he discovered crucial principles of cell fertilization and development, proving that the cell surface, not just the nucleus, plays a key role in heredity and growth. His meticulous experiments laid the groundwork for modern cell biology and fertility science, yet racial barriers kept his discoveries largely in the shadows. Across the Atlantic, Dr. Agnes Yawanda Savage became West Africa's first woman to qualify as a medical doctor in the 1920s. Trained in Edinburgh yet committed to her homeland, she fought colonial prejudice to bring modern medicine to communities where hospitals barely existed. She saved countless lives, not with speeches or protests, but with a steady hand and relentless rounds in sweltering clinics. From William Goines decoding enemy signals to Sister Rosetta Tharpe electrifying gospel halls, these figures worked in very different arenas. Yet they shared the same quiet power. They advanced humanity without demanding recognition. Their impact hums beneath our everyday routines. Every song streamed, every shared document, every GPS direction, every scientific breakthrough. Think of it, the music on your playlist, the tech on your phone, the navigation guiding you home, the biology shaping medicine. Each carries the imprint of Black heroes history nearly forgot. Why did so many of these pioneers remain hidden? Some were silenced by racism and segregation. Others simply chose the work over the spotlight. But their restraint doesn't lessen their triumphs, it magnifies them. They remind us that greatness doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, patient and unstoppable. Now that you know their names, the question is, what will you do with them? Share their stories. Teach them to someone younger. Dig deeper into local archives and family histories. More untold heroes are waiting to be found, maybe even in your own lineage. Because the world changes not just when the famous speak, but when ordinary people like you, refuse to let vital stories disappear. If these hidden legends moved you, don't let them fade again. Like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel so their voices reach far beyond this screen. Together we can make sure the quiet architects of freedom, music, science, and medicine are finally heard, loud and clear.